I've been a part of One Khamsa for quite some time now. We recently released our new game called Underdogs. This is a presentation about VR embodiment in Underdogs. So we're going to go over what's Underdogs, what is the VR embodiment problem as we see it today in VR. We're going to go over the solution, which we call first in a half person, and the added benefits that we got from it, and we'll have some time for questions. So, Underdogs. It's a VR game first and foremost. It's a physics-based mech brawler, which is how we define this genre. And it is wrapped around in roguelike elements. So you have like some builds that you can mess around with, and you're customizing your mech, and it's really fun. This is a trailer, so you can get a sense of the game.
Hey, yo, Rick, getting you that mech fighting license? Best risk I ever taken. I get the fuck out my brother's way.
Aggressor, put them under pressure.
Loving our new tools. Let's get this cracking.
Yo, never get bombarded. Them never really want no drama.
Yo, it's Big Rig in the kill box, motherfuckers.
Him want get this scar. Him want get start up. Him want nothing but drama. He a talk my love. Trust what me say, my love.
It's the jungle out here, bruv. Tomorrow ain't promised to no one. Listen, I know you have a secret death wish somewhere, but no more blocking with your face. You hear me? Rig, get the fuck out of there, bruv. Stop trying to be a hero, man. You're no good to me in a coffin.
Okay, so, yeah, thank you. VR embodiment. It's the sensation of being inside, having and controlling a body. In virtual reality, it is possible to substitute a person's body with a virtual body. We do it we have like the headset and the controllers, and this gives us the position of the head and the position of the controls in some kind of player space, and we kind of reconstruct a body around the player. It plays an important role in how interactions feel in VR, and we are limited. We are limited by the hardware to like convey the feeling of being in the game, and that causes issues when you look at many VR games today. The problem is, it's me, but it isn't 100% me. Like, there is this issue when you see with most VR games that there is this physics dissonance. Because you already have controllers in your hands, you don't have any feeling of weight or physical feedback for your interactions. A simple case that will illuminate that will be that when we face a player with a virtual wall, we put a virtual wall in front of the player, and the player goes like this, and he's putting his arm, his physical arm, over that virtual barrier. There are only two solutions to this. Or you're letting the hand of the player, reconstructed in VR, go over that physical wall, or that hand will get stuck. And if that hand gets stuck, you're suddenly not controlling your arm. It's very, very weird feeling. There's also that movement dissonance. Like, why am I moving with a joystick when I have my arms, my legs to move around? It's not something that we're used to. It's not something that we can feel is believable for a situation that you want to transport the player to a new world where he can inhabit that world. There's also the issue of getting hurt. Like, a zombie is waving its arms at you and you're losing some health, you can't really feel the impact. You can't really feel getting hurt in VR. So it also takes you out of the experience. So our solution is first and a half person, which is, it's 100% me. I'm just in a mech. The Gorilla Mech offers half a degree of separation, which we mean is that the mech is us in all intents and purposes. It's just separated enough that the interaction itself feels natural, like you're not doing it yourself. It's mediated through the mech. It works like this. So we have the pilot, which is us reconstructed in VR. We call you rig. And in VR and in the game world, in the physical world, you're holding a controller. And that controller is also in VR. You have the controllers that you're holding inside of the mech. You're also surrounded by a bubble, which most VR player space setups are around 1.5 meters in diameter, and that offers us a safe space to move around in and not interact with things that could cause these dissonances. And through that, we use the mech's long arm to interact with the game world outside of the bubble which you exist in your physical space. So it solves the physics dissonance in this way. The mech collides with the world. The player hands are free to move. There is no case where your hands in VR are stuck behind a wall or are interacting with something. You feel the interaction through the mech. And the player hands are always where they should be. So there is no feeling of dissonance that this is not my real hand. It's always my real hand. And players can resolve conflicts between the physical and virtual. There is this case where in VR games where you interact with like a heavy object that you can't really know where your arm is to solve the conflict of how do I move this arm to like get over this wall, which I don't really know where my arm is. Movement dissonance is also solved by our locomotion system, which in our game, you grab the ground to move like a gorilla. So as you can see here, the mech is like dragging itself around. And the mech is moving and not you. So you're kind of feeling like you're in a car, which is something that is way more believable for and the bubble offers a fixed reference point, which also helps a lot with motion sickness. That to the point, no one reported being motion sick. We actually got a lot of reviews that would say, oh, I expected the game to be, it looks so frantic that I expected to feel motion sick, but I didn't feel motion sick in your game. And when something hits us, it actually connects. We have a body that is not us, and we can interact with it. And other enemies can interact with our body. So when Usam here, one of the bosses, hits us, we can see the impact, we can feel the impact, we can show the visible damage states, like the glass cracks and the sparks fly. And it also allows us to reintroduce something that we love to use in games, which is the camera shake. If you try to do it in VR, like shaking the view of the player, will be a big mistake for the feeling of comfort. And shaking around the bubble offers us a way to reintroduce that, to really feel an impact. Another benefit, like we got a lot of benefits from getting this mech into the game. The bubble is a symbolic representation for in-world UI. So when you're, like the health bars do not exist in real life. That's shocking. But in the game, we we kind of say, okay, the bubble is a AR display of these, and when it gets cracked and we have less UI visible, as you can see here, as the bubble cracks, you can't really see the health bars because it's projected from the bubble. It adds all the tension. It adds us a feeling of we're really exposed at that moment. It also shows us a direction of hits, which helps with the feeling of knowing who hit you. Another thing that we're able to do with this is do an intentional separation from the movement that will offer a very intuitive way to move. As you can see in the GIF, what I'm doing here is I'm holding my hand and I'm using the trigger, and the mech arm does it for me. It just grabs the ground, so I don't need to move my hands into the ground to start moving. The movement is calculated in player space, so we're really translating intention directly into movement. It's not the movement of the mech is only visual. So it doesn't matter what's the physical state of the mech. You're always free to move, and you always get the same movement from any response. This also offers us a way to do some physics styling, like we dampen small movements for more robotic feeling. When we project the controller into the players into the mech world, a robot doesn't really feel as jittery to control like our real hands. There's a lot of jitter to our position that we get from the controllers, and that feels like you're piloting something much heavier. We can direct the field of impacts because, like as you can see here, as I hit the dogs in the armor, it gets stopped for a second to really show the player, hey, you hit an armor, you should avoid that. And as we do that, we also do the punches in player space. Like I talked about in movement, when we calculate what's going to be the trajectory of a punch, we're not doing it according to how the mech arm moved. We're doing it according to how you did your punch. When you're doing an uppercut and maybe the mech arm goes like this, the end result is always that uppercut. So you can always expect something to be very consistent in your punches. And the last point that we can get from it is that the mech stays the same, and the height and the arm length are the same. So we can offer a consistent experience. We do a calibration phase when we start the game. We get the length of the arms, the height of the player, and when we do that, we remap the length of the arms so that no matter how you're going, like what's the length of the arms, when you outstretch your arm in Underdogs, it's always the right amount of stretching of the arms of the mech. Doesn't matter if I give it to my little sister, which is a lot shorter. If she outstretches her arms, she gets the same reach as I do. And this offers a consistent experience for everyone who's playing the game. So in summary, first and a half personing helps with VR embodiment. It can solve physics dissonance, it can solve movement dissonance, getting hurt, and the different body proportions. Gaijin VR, which is a fan of our game, really stated it in a neat way. It told us that maybe in the near future VR games aren't games that try to encapsulate the player directly in a game world, but into a game object that has a degree of separation from the game world. And that's what we did in Underdogs. Thank you. If you have any questions, you can contact us on, like, I have questions here, but please feel free to join our Discord, maybe send me an email. We will be really happy to talk about the game and share more of our knowledge with the community. We're really looking for more interaction with all of the developers in Israel. So if you have any questions, this is the time for it.
What was the first version of the game? How you came up with the clean idea and all the
It was a long process. It was about 2 years of experimentation with all kinds of things. We wanted something to feel like it always was a principle that we wanted you to move in VR. We wanted your actions to be important and not just pressing some button to initiate an action. And through that, we went through some movements prototypes and punching prototypes and dancing prototypes, and it was a lot of, there was this first prototype that we got back to when we kind of did some physical enemies that were reactive to our punches, that suddenly the being in a mech clicked. And that's when we got a good trajectory into making Underdogs. The movement system wasn't there, but this was the trajectory. We're going to punch things, and it's going to feel awesome. That was the idea. Yeah.
So you talked a lot about use inspiration and how you can enhance with the realism and like really keep your in the world. But what you're doing is allowed by the mech team. Do you think other VR games can incorporate the same kind of thing without that?
Yeah. Okay, so the question is, is this a one-off solution? So you can take the principles and come up with your own designs for some ways of solving these. I can think of ways that could work, but it's up to you to find the right lore, the right framing for your interactions. But I do urge you, if you're doing some VR game, to keep this in mind because it makes the game feel a lot more responsive, it makes the game feel a lot more fun. It's stronger. Every movement inside of the bubble is translated into the movement of the mech. So, and every rotation is also translated to the mech player's space rotation. There is this issue with rotations in VR that is really important to get right, and we really try to keep the, when you're rotating, to keep your physical position of the rotation in physical world, in mech world, which is a kind of like, you don't want to rotate around the pivot, which is important to get that correct, but we try to do it, and I think that answers the question. I don't, maybe? No. We try to keep you in that area. If you walk out of the bubble, you're just getting some indication to return to center. It really kind of if it moved around you, it would make you lose sense of the physical reality that you're in. So we don't move the bubble when you move inside the bubble. Okay?
Hi. Does your game support sitting mode? Like when you like sitting?
Yeah, you can sit.
I mean, like you can sit and fight.
You can just sit and recalibrate, and it would there is this calibration sequence when you get the height of the player. So you can just sit and recalibrate, and it would place you in the right position.
But what about the rotation? You're rotating like with the joystick, or?
Yeah, we have some smooth rotation or rotation options with the joystick, but it wasn't planned in the first iteration. It was an afterthought that we got that rotation. We really want you to experience it with your full body.
Are you planning to release the game on PlayStation VR?
PlayStation is an issue. No? Okay, that was my time. Thank you.